So, how to buy a domain name, you know? So, now since you have decided to start a new venture and you have come up with the perfect name, but when you search for the domain you want, you discover that someone already owns it. So, what do you do? Do you give up and change your business name, or do you figure out how to buy a domain that is taken? If you want to choose the later option, you have come to the right place. So, here we will guide you that why it's so important to get the exact domain you want. So, before we begin, don't just go and get a different TLD. If your desired domain is taken, you might be thinking that there is a third option, uh, you know, worth considering getting the same domain but with a different TLD like .net, .org instead of .com. However, this is not a good idea. First off, people will never remember what your correct TLD was. So they will usually go for .com anyway, ending up at the wrong website. Additionally, registering existing names can also result in legal trouble. The owner of the original .com might argue that you are trying to infringe on their brand name by registering a similar domain name. At the end of the day, you are really better off either trying to get the original domain name that you wanted from the start or changing your focus to a different name entirely. Well, with that said, let's talk business. How to buy a domain that is taken? You can buy a domain that is taken by following these steps. Check what the domain is currently being used for. Your first step should be to visit the domain name you want to buy. Is there a real website there? Has it been updated in the past few years? If the answer to both questions are yes, the owner on the domain is probably not interested in selling it. If there is a real website but it hasn't been updated in several years, you are more likely to get the domain, but there's still a strong chance the owner will refuse to sell it. On the other hand, you know if the website you see is simply a placeholder, you can approach the domain owner with confidence. If the domain owner buys and resells domain on a regular basis, they might even have a page up linking to the domain buying service they prefer to work with. So here is an example of what a park domain usually looks like. Owners of such domains are usually just waiting for the right offer to come their way. Second is find out who owns the domain name. Once you have determined that the domain isn't being used for an active website, your next step is to find out who owns the domain. The easiest way to do this is by using a WHOIS service. There's a number of websites where you can do this sort of lookup, but most of the time you will get a standard information from any of them. When the domain was registered, who the domain was registered by, how to contact that person or company, and even the domain's current ownership expires. You may also see other information related to the purchase, but for the purposes of getting that domain, the owner's email address is really what you want. Example result of WHOIS. So some domain owners will have purchased privacy protection and their names won't appear in a WHOIS search. In these instances, it will be difficult to purchase the domain unless you can find it on a domain auction site or marketplace like Sido, Namecheap, or Flippa. So, third is determine what you are willing to pay. Now that you know that domain is available and before you contact the owner, decide what you are willing to pay for it. This can be tricky since there are no agreed upon value of a domain, but you can get an idea of what prices are by searching through a domain marketplaces like Flippas. So here are some factors to pay attention to when figuring out how to buy a domain that is taken. Keywords. Domains with popular keywords in them are worth because of their ability to rank high on Google and other search engines. Generic value. A domain can be used by almost any business within a given industry. For example, socialmediamarketing.com has a generic value. Brandability. When a domain lacks generic value or a strong keyword, Its main value lies in the brandability. Short memory names that are easy to spell are easy to build a brand around. Age. Older domains are generally considered more valuable. Length, or rather shortness. The shorter the domain, the more valuable. So, fourth is contact the owner. If your search is successful, there are two ways you can contact the owner: by reaching out directly or by using a domain buying service. To reach out directly, simply use the information found in your WHOIS search to settle a point. You can send a polite email offering to buy a domain. You can include some information about who you are and why you want the domain, but keep your email brief. Include your initial offer in the first email to speed up the negotiation process. If you use a domain buying service, a broker will reach out to the domain owner and conduct the negotiation process for you. So, fifth is negotiate the purchase. Once you have established contact with the owner, it's time to negotiate your terms of purchase. This includes price, how the domain will be transferred, and what region laws will apply to the sale. So, that's all.